We're doing a quick, just an impromptu Facebook Live to talk about an event that happened today that is really similar to what we was talking about yesterday. Thanks for taking a second to watch. We just want to bring up some stuff and see what y'all think, to see if these issues have any relevance to you and to us. You know what I'm saying? And what you all feel about it. But not sure if everybody had a chance to look at the event that happened this morning that was put on by the by UAMIC, the United African American Ministerial Action Council, that honored, amongst others, and I don't know the other two, as a brother and sister in there or whatever, that got honored. So I don't know what they necessarily got honored for. And God bless them if whatever they got honored for was good, right? But one of the people that was honored was Bonnie Dumanis, and she was given a hero award from them for her contributions to equal justice. And I guess what I want to know is what did she do? What has she done? What has she produced in the community that we wouldn't have a need for time done in the community if it wasn't for district attorneys like Bonnie Dumanis, and we wouldn't have a need for we wouldn't be standing up so much. We wouldn't have had so much issue with the DA race that just went if we had a DA that was actually worthy of a hero award for equal justice. Right. And I just wanted to point out, because you have a lot more knowledge about her actions on the Black community. But I wanted to, one of the things that we know is that UAMIC was the one that put this on. And I wanted to talk real quick about what UAMIC's, what their, I don't want to say philosophy, but what they're about is, you know what I'm saying? Their mission and vision.
Mission, purpose.
What they stand for. And I just want to, I want to see.
How is this in line with their vision, their purpose, you know? You're supposed to have mission, vision, purpose to keep you focused, that you don't start drifting and money don't come in to start taking you away from your calling or what you're supposed to be doing. You know, this is straight up like crooked, corrupt.
So they honored former police chief Shelley Zimmerman. I don't know what she got her. So we're not even focusing on her. That's fine. We're not going to focus on her. They honored her. They honored Bonnie Dumanis. And then the keynote speaker was David Jeremiah.
Racist.
So here's my thing.
He's on Donald Trump's advisory board, right? So if UAMIC is saying that they're for radical reform, I don't know what kind of radical reform you're talking about, because, you know, we do give Trump a little credit for signing this First Step Act.
Of course.
But that was something in the making with a lot of folk, grassroots organizations in the community, pushing Congress and so on. So, but we're thankful for that. But when you look at Trump and how he's dismantling a lot of the things that President Obama has set up, especially with the consent decrees, those consent decrees is when they kind of like put the police department on house arrest, or, you know, under supervision, where outside agency outside government, federal government comes in, and they go to court, they set up policies and things, different things they have to change. And the reason why this happened is because of the way they've been policing the Black communities. So there's a lot of consent decrees that Obama's administration had put out on police departments. And when Trump administration got in there, they're undoing all that, and they're not enforcing a lot of stuff. So, you know, we know that, you know, the problem that we have in our communities, and when you talk about reform, it starts on the front line with police, and then it goes to the DA's office. And that's where we have most of the problems at, you know, especially, you know, I mean, I think some of us just became aware of how crooked it was when we looked at it, and really not aware, but it really shook us to a point to where that we moved to action with what happened to the Justice for SD 33. But that movement that we had here, I think it's 2014, 2015. But this stuff has been going on since slavery, right? And Bonnie has been a part of that mass incarceration.
Well, let's set it up real quick, because I think it's important to see why somebody certainly could have. Hey, you know what? Maybe somebody thought that Bonnie Dumanis, right? And whatever. But I just want to know if UAMIC should have given it to them. Let's look at their About Us. If you go to their webpage, says United African American Ministerial Action Council, UAMIC, is a nonprofit 501c3 organization based in San Diego, California. UAMIC is an organization committed to the vision of a beloved community of justice. They said they are an organization committed to the vision of a beloved community of justice, equitable access to opportunities in the pursuit of happiness, education, health, family stability, economic development, peace and prosperity for all people. To this endeavor, all people of goodwill and their resources are invited to participate in working with us collectively in making the vision of the beloved community a reality. UAMIC calls the community to come together in a spirit of unity as we work collaboratively and responsibly to address the need for radical reform. Radical reform in the 5 key areas of UAMIC's core competencies essential in building the beloved community, namely economic development, public education, family stability, public health, and judicial equity. So let's look at 3 words here. 3 things that I want to talk about. They have a vision of a beloved community of justice. That's what they. So one of the things that in their webpage, and if I could share the screen with y'all, I share it so you can see it. You can go to UAAMAC.org and click on the About Us, and this will come up. They said they want a beloved community of justice. Okay, so they want to search for justice, and that's great. Those are all noble things. Justice is one of them. The second thing that we notice when we look in here is that they want to. They're looking to address the need for radical reform. So they want justice, radical reform, and then the last thing they talked about for the purpose of it is judicial equity. So justice, radical reform, and judicial equity. With that being said, how does Bonnie Dumanis, how does her getting a hero award, she's getting a hero award for her contributions to equal justice. And I want to ask you, UAMIC, what has she done? If you're promoting justice, if you're promoting radical reform and judicial, was it equity? Judicial equity. If that's what you want to do, how does Bonnie Dumanis deserve an award like that?
And what has she done since she's been out of office, right? Since she stepped back way before her term, some months before her term expired. What has she done since then when you talk about reform and dealing with justice and so on? Now, we must also acknowledge that she did in the background or behind closed doors. I mean, she came out public with it, support Prop 57. Okay. But when we wanted her to be a champion for that, and I talked with JJ about this because we were pushing Prop 57 here, and she said, "Oh, well, yeah, I support it," and so on. But then when we wanted her to come forward to do something to get our back on this as a DA, being showing that, hey, you're about criminal justice reform, JJ told me, no, she's not going to do that because she's not going to go up against Faulconer. Because Mayor Faulconer was opposing Prop 57. He came out, did a press conference and everything. And JJ said that she was not going to oppose him, come out publicly and oppose what he's trying to do. So is that really, being for something when you're afraid to stand up to people just because you think that you're in alliance with them? So evidently she is in alliance with Faulconer and in alliance with a lot of these other folks that are anti reform when it comes to the criminal justice system, or as some of us would say, the legal system. She's has really continued to perpetuate systemic racism, and that's the problem that we've been having with that. And so my thing is that when you have a Black organization like UAMIC, and you have a clergy, pastors that supposed to be leading this, what are they? Are they conservative Republicans? Because if they are, then I see why you're doing it, but don't come with the pretense that You're for the communities that are marginalized, underserved, and oppressed, and you're here to serve, because really what it looks like, you're poverty pimps. What it looked like is that all you in this thing for is money and where you can get more money from, and so on. Even back when with what happened to the Just for SD 33, and we were doing our rallies and protests and different things like that. It was our good friend Shane, right? Reverend Shane Harris was calling out some of these folks, and Gerald was one of the dudes that got mad. Then I heard even when they was having certain meetings and trying to do something, they would try to oppose them. So they were against really Justice for SD 33. UAMIC was, because their leadership was. So they never been on the side of the community. So I mean, from one perspective, when I think about this, it's like, are they even worth the time? You know what I mean? But because they have this huge platform, and I don't know how many people were there and who went and things like that, but I just say to my people, Black people, sometimes, I mean, I know I have principles, and sometimes I'm extreme, and people may look at that and say, oh, well, that's just Bowser. But why would you go to something like that? I mean, when you see somebody like David Jeremiah speaking, and you go and look him up and see that he had led anything when it comes to civil rights for Black people. And when he is actually on, I don't know if he still is, but the update, the latest information that I got, that I saw, is that Dr. Jeremiah is on Trump's advisory board, and he's a white evangelical. So, and he most definitely have been speaking out against all the racist things that's been happening going on. So why in the world are you going to have somebody like that come speak, right? And it's the same thing with Miles McPherson, who calls some of these white evangelicals like the prophet of the times and all that kind of stuff. These guys are sick, and we got a lot of our people following them. And that's where I have the problem, is because the Black community don't hold these people accountable. And when they see them, they go up and hug them and laugh and talk with them and everything else like everything's okay. I don't have nothing to say to you. Don't come to me. I ain't shaking your hand. I ain't doing nothing, because you're a crook. Well, and I want you to know that I got a problem with you until you change, until you repent.
Well, one of the things that we know, what's up, Alonzo? Alonzo Harvey was one of the people that got caught up in the web of Bonnie Dumanis's heroic acts.
Yeah, it was the federal government, but it was a part of that mass sweep that they did.
She is a part of that. Yeah, she's a part of what happens here. Tiny Do, all these cats that are a part of what is going on with what our judicial system was doing here in San Diego. And I want to go back to, like, to me, one of the things that's most telling, and this is something that I talked to Gerald Brown about personally, when the DA race was going on, and he was standing with the DA's office. That all tell folks right there. He was standing with them and speaking against Genevieve. And so I knew from the gate that he didn't even know who she was. He couldn't even say her name correctly. And so I asked him, like, why are you not supporting Genevieve? She's a part of our community. Right. She's here. Like, right. She's qualified. Like, right. she knows what's going on. Why would you not support her? And Alonzo just said there's folks who are still locked up behind her heroic acts. And so I asked him, like, why is UAMIC, why are you all not supporting a Black candidate for DA that's from the community that you got your little gun drive
and talking about reform
and talking about really radically reform? If you're all about radical reform, you have to get somebody in here that is willing to address these issues and reform them radically. Right. And the DA that we have now is not just the way that the way Bonnie got out of the race, the way that she vacated her position as DA to put Summer Stephan in there so that she could run for County Board of Supervisors. And thank God Nathan Fletcher beat her or whatever, but running for that position, she got whooped. She wasn't even considered. I mean, it was almost she shouldn't even have showed up. But then, and she gave Summer Stephan the ability to run as the incumbent, to be able to run on company dollars and whatever, put her in an absolute advantage to be able to win. And you never even had enough decency to look at any of the other candidates or whatever, because my view is you just follow the money. Right. They're getting money from the government to be able to do these kinds of things. Black folks in those spaces are disconnected. With the community. That's what Alonzo says. There's no doubt about it. And I told him that, and other pastors or whatever, that I told them personally, like, you all are disrespecting the community. What you don't realize is because you're not doing things in the community. Yeah, you got a gun buyback. That don't mean that ain't doing nothing. I mean, you could take 100 guns off the street and there's 10,000 more that's going right back to the streets. Those gun buyback things are useless. I mean,
and they're using this for fundraisers, man.
Come on, man. You're giving cats gift cards. So my thing is,
or whatever.
My thing is, how are you going to have an event to honor the legacy of Dr. King?
Poverty pimps.
How you going to do that? And you have a speaker that is out of touch with has done nothing.
You're racist.
He does nothing in the Black community, like just period. He's not doing anything in the, like he has zero clue, right? And then you honor two people that terrorize the Black community. Dr. King would have never shared the dais with Bonnie Dumanis or with a police chief like that. Never. You might as well invite Bull
Bonnie
Connor.
did oppose Prop 47. Right.
Of course.
She opposed it. She had all these different meetings and stuff in the community and things like that. But they opposed Prop 47. Zimmerman opposed Prop 47. And this is supposed to be for radical reform. How are you going to have people that opposing reform? You know, right now, all these DAs, often police associations, they still oppose reform for the most part. You know,
they don't want radical reform. And this is what happens. And so this is what so Dr. Jeremiah has one of the largest Southern Baptist churches in the convention. He has a very large church in El Cajon. And what happens with these ministers who have these little small churches in Southeast that are totally irrelevant, the way that you gain relevancy is you connect with these other people that have power and you make deals with them. And they're absolutely Republicans. Like David Jeremiah is a Republican. Make no mistake about it or whatever.
There's a pastor, and this was a part of some guys that was part of Pastor on Points, but there's a pastor that told me that he got a ticket from one of them to go to an event. And when he went to the event, he realized that it was a Republican event.
Of course it is. Well,
you're like, what in the world?
But that's because they're Republicans. And what is happening, and we talked about this yesterday, that we have to begin to enforce a code of conduct. Let me just be clear, right? There are times where you might say something that might be out of pocket. I'll say something that's out of pocket. And like, man, sorry, like we need to atone for that. I shouldn't have said it, right? I apologize. Like that was a mistake. We don't disfellowship people for making mistakes, and you know what that's
what they repent, you know.
But when you are deliberately doing things that are going against the best interests of the community and you don't care for the money, then we need to do something about that. And I want to call other pastors that are a part of the community or whatever to come against what is happening right here and begin to speak out against these other ministers that are doing what they're doing to try to elevate their status. Now we used to laugh back in the day. If you look at Cops and other shows like that, we used to like giggle, like, look, you know, brothers on the camera, like, yeah, I'm getting arrested. Like we used to kind of laugh about the limelight, right? And laugh about like how, you know, the stigma of always wanting to kind of be in the camera, and when the camera's on to kind of turn on and let's get turned up, right? We used to kind of joke about that. And I guess it was funny until we begin to start seeing now what happens when you're doing everything that you can to get into the limelight, and you're willing to do whatever you can in order to attain some kind of relevance. And as a Christian, the desire for God for Christians is not to seek power and to not seek fame. There's nothing wrong.
And not to take bribery.
No, sir.
That will pervert justice.
And that's exactly what they're doing. And that's why these little small churches, that's the reason why they connect with David Jeremiah, is because it gives them power. David Jeremiah has a multi-million-dollar organization that
I went on that campus. It's a huge campus.
They ship goods and his Bibles and his books. He has a whole shelf full of books, and he is what a lot of these Black pastors want to be in the community. He is that. And so because they look to a pastor like you that is, if you look at our churches in the community, it's 50 churches from 68th Street all the way to 40th Street on Imperial. It's 108,000 churches on it, right? I mean, it's not, but it's a lot. It's a lot, right? It's a lot of churches
all over the place,
right? And if you think about it, there's only a few big ones. There's only a few big Black churches in San Diego or whatever, right? So if your desire is to get big and to be popular and to be famous instead of preaching Jesus and standing up for justice and standing up for the things that God would want you to, if your desire is to stand in the public square and look like you're important, you're willing to, then you're going to miss the mark, and you'll partner up with people that absolutely have nothing to do with what you're doing.
And here's the point that I think is missed many times, that something that you said, and I don't know who you were debating with and how long the debate went on, but you were talking about how that even want to have these ministries to minister to people that's already trapped in the system, whether it's going in prison ministry and talking, but they ain't doing nothing to reform and close the door to keep people from getting caught in that web of criminal injustice, right? And that's what you see here, right? Because when I'm reading the thing, they're talking about all the things she was doing, the things like that. It's what she's dealing with is after they done got out there and over policed our community, arrest a lot of people, and then now they trapped in the system, and now you have all these different kind of programs that you're talking about you're doing to try to help folks and stuff. And then a lot of that stuff is not built on really bringing true reform, because I was on their committee with the youth court. And and my thing was, I was trying to get them to not only just have it in District 8, but also, District 4, but also District 8, but also they only want to help people who first got in trouble. I said, no, we should be helping everybody, no matter who they're, whether you have them documented as gang member or they consider violent or whatever. We should be trying to help everybody in the community. And JJ them didn't want to do that. And so I backed away from it because I didn't want to be a part of something that, they're just going to continue on with the status quo of what they're doing.
Well, my biggest problem is always with the preachers who are doing things that are not consistent with things that bring about justice in an equal scale. And when it's obvious that you are aligning yourself, the community has said over and over again that the DA's office is a cancer to the Black community. And DA's offices across the country are cancers in communities of color, primarily Black and brown communities. They're cancers. They are absolute vultures, and they prey on poverty. And when you have these ministerial alliances, when you look at largely made up of older pastors who are probably trying their hardest to gain a sense of relevance. And what we see happening with Gerald Browns and them is that they are willing to do things to get them put in positions of power so that they'll be quiet, right? Give you $150,000 a year and shut you up, or $100,000 and make you be quiet, or whatever is kind of what happens, right? Not kind of, it's exactly what happens. And the only way that you can become relevant is if you put yourself in that. You have to become one of those people. If your desire is to get fame, if your desire is to get that, then you'll be willing to do certain things that other people wouldn't be willing to do to get that fame. And it is a problem in our community for pastors to be selling people out like that. And it's unfortunate. It's unfortunate when there is zero reason why you would partner with a church that has never done anything for you.
And where have they been with all these reports that's coming out on the racial profiling and all of that? Even when Reverend Gerald Brown was I guess executive before he got the other position, and they come in and speak. It's always got there always got to be a piece where you're praising the police and everything versus dealing with the issue to hold them accountable, to get them to step it up and stop doing what they're doing. And that's been part of the problem in our community. Where I think when you talk about the code of conduct, I think the other part of the problem is that a lot of our community members support that stuff. Right, maybe because they don't know no better. That's what I said. Maybe out of ignorance, maybe not being aware, maybe for whatever reason. I don't know. People are free to do whatever they want to do. But if we're going to stop this from happening in our community, we got to come together and have some type of code of conduct to say we're not supporting that, right? And we're going to call you. In fact, we're going to protest. We're going to have some signs out there. And we're going to be protesting against you and so on. So I think that we give them free passes. They go down as long as they know they can do this. They're going to do it. When I was involved in the union and people would come to me and say, hey, can my manager do this? I'll say, yeah, they can if you let them. They do whatever they want to do. You know what I mean? So the same with this, they're going to continue to do this kind of stuff if we let them, and I think this is a part of it, calling them out on it, because they're most definitely going to get mad. Every time I call them out on stuff, they get mad and stuff. And but they don't keep their part of the deal, right? Because when I meet with them and they say, well, what do you want us to take to the mayor? And I give them this list that they need to, that issues I have, I never hear from them again. And so they don't follow through on their stuff and things like that. But then they want to silence you, or they say, hey, come talk to us first and all this. Well, you didn't come talk to me first when you did this. We weren't going to approve of this or like what you're doing here. So so all of them have to be held accountable, even though I know some of those folks on that board of director is sickly and elderly and probably don't know what's happening. And so I'll give at least one of them a pass that's on that board of directors. And I don't know some of the other ones, so I don't know where they stand on those things. But especially like the chairman and the executive director and that vice chair, they do know. And some of the board members like Reverend Gerald Brown, they do know. And so that organization has to be held accountable from the perspective that you can't allow it to function like this. And we need to start writing letters to their funders. Some of the things I saw, I don't know if these people are funding them, but they had the Wellness Foundation, they had the endowment,
California
Endowment, and people. You got to start writing their funders and telling their funders, stop giving these people money, and whoever their sponsor was for this event, we got to go after them, get petitions. This is the way you shut them down. Get petitions. And if everybody can come together, because the thing of it is that you can start a petition, only 10 people sign, it means nothing. But if you can get thousands of people to sign a petition, and it's easy to put a petition together and send it to the Wellness Foundation, send it to the California Endowment, send it to their other funders and so on. That'll make that, when you start going after the money, their money, that'll wake them up, either move them out or wake them up.
That's one of the things, like we talked about last night. One of the things we got to talk about is the idea of the code of conduct. And we have to, at some point, we got to be able to come together as a Black community and say, there's just certain things that are just, there's no way. I mean, that's just the epitome of arrogance for that organization to honor Bonnie Dumanis in light of all of the things
and
that
how
the community has talked
about. Jeremiah, whatever his name is, to speak there, right?
I mean,
David Jeremiah.
I
know that's
not
this, but
no. I'm just saying, both of those things are problematic, extremely problematic. David Jeremiah has never come. He wouldn't know where you at.
And I saw somebody write a comment, and before I saw them write that comment, the thoughts was in my mind about that is that when Alfred Alongo got killed, it happened in El Cajon, and people were trying to reach out to their church and was asking the church to get involved and stuff, and they did not get involved.
They won't do that. They won't do that. And my whole point is that what's problematic about all of it is the motive for it.
Yeah.
It's the motive.
Yeah.
Man, it's the motive.
Let me ask you something. What do you think David Jeremiah's motive was?
You know what? I have no clue. I'll tell you this. So one thing I do know is,
what is he getting out of it?
David Jeremiah hasn't come. The only way I know of David Jeremiah, I don't know, was because I used to go to Shadow Mountain years ago. I went to that church.
And I bet you there's a lot of Black people in the church.
There's some. There's probably not a lot, but there's some. I know that I began to kind of question when Trump came to San Diego, and David Jeremiah was one of the pastors that was laying hands on him and praying for him. And I kind of was like,
that was in San Diego?
Yeah.
I missed that. When that happened?
When he was getting ready when he was running for president.
He was
a part with Paula White and all that. Yeah, that was 3-4 years ago.
That was here in San Diego, though.
Folks that I know that have been a part of the ministry that have complained about some of the racism that happens in the church, directly linked to him. I have never personally experienced any. I know some of his family members. I've never experienced anything, but I trust the people who said it that would absolutely know, and they have no reason to lie. No reason. There's no gain or loss for them to lie.
Right.
So I know.
Right.
I don't know why he came to San Diego. I mean, came to speak at this, because he is the least associated with justice in the Black community of probably any pastor in San Diego. He is extremely old. You know what I mean? Nice guy. He speaks really well. Blah, blah, right? So, I mean, as far as being but here's my thing. You know what he is? You know why he was invited? Because he's popular, and because he's big, and because he has resources, and because he has an international reach. And when you got preachers who don't have that, when you got preachers who are so small that they attach to people like that so that they can get those particular things, they can get those things. But the problem with churches like that is that once you get those things, you don't do anything with them, and you become 1,000 times worse than you are right now. There's a reason why churches in certain communities are really, really small, right? Yeah. If you look at if you look at a Bayview's a big church, and they do a lot of stuff. I mean, they are completely entrenched in the community. They do a lot of work, from food pantries to, I mean, you know what I mean? You can tell that a lot of the resources that Bayview has, they put back into the community. You know what I mean? And you meet Pastor Brooks, very laid back, just a regular guy. Like you don't see him and you go, oh, But a lot of these older folks, I would imagine, I don't know. I've never asked Pastor Brooks. I have no clue. We don't talk about we don't talk about personal stuff. So I don't know that. But what I would imagine is some of these older pastors in the community probably hate him because he's young. Yeah. He's not from San Diego, and he has a vision. And one of the beautiful things at Bayview is that Pastor Winters did an incredible job listening to that brother preach. Pastor Winters could preach his tail off. I still listen to sermons that he preached. He was an excellent teacher, man. That brother was, but he was what the church is supposed to be for the community. And so the beautiful thing is to see that Pastor Brooks was able to come in and continue that work. But he built it. To me, it looks like Pastor Brooks made it more relevant. And there's a way to do that without sacrificing the integrity of the church. And I don't think that Pastor Brooks has done that. Right. And you just can tell the way I've been to the church, and so my point is that you can still be a successful church in the Black community. Right. And that's obvious because Bayview is that.
And there's some few other churches.
I'm just talking about when you look at like larger churches or whatever. But these other churches don't do that. They feel like the way to do that is to align yourself with somebody else and be able to get some of their resources, put the picture of this popular guy on your flyer so people go, ooh, and then in our community, we see that kind of stuff and we automatically attribute success and vibrancy.
TV probably read his books and things like that.
And they probably read all of his books, but they attach themselves for the popularity and they sell the people out. There is no way, zero way that Bonnie Dumanis should have got any kind of hero award by some Black pastors. That is the most asinine, ridiculous thing that has ever happened. That is one of the most insane things I've ever seen. That's why I was like, man, I just wanted to get on and say it live. I can't believe that these folks gave her a hero award for preying on the Black community. You actually awarded her for locking people up. Locking people up. You actually lock people up. So Alonzo says that they rather gain souls and not save souls. Hide in the church and don't put the radical work in that is required to be godlike. It is, being radical is being godlike. There's no question about that. And being radical doesn't mean frivolous, right? Like some people think radical is just you ready to just run out with guns blazing. No, but radical sometimes is being willing to call out stuff and go, this is not okay. They're not willing to do that. He says, afraid of sacrifice, even if it causes death, sacrifice is godlike. It's interesting, I agree with that. I agree that it is godlike to be sacrificial. That's the message of the gospel. That is what Jesus did. Jesus sacrificed his life or whatever. The most radical thing you probably could ever do.
Made it different and called them out and the whole shebang. And so when you do it now, they try to say, that's not being peaceful. That's not loving. That's not various things. And then, a lot of the pastors, they're not going to speak out because they got something to lose, right? So when you have a large church, you got to carry yourself a certain way if you want to hold on to the members. If you either inherited that or you built it on a pretense of the certain facade that you have. But who you are, and that's what I believe in, being who I am, and you're going to attract the right people to you. And so with me, I'm not going to change for anybody, and I'm going to continue to pastor, continue to be who I am, continue to call out sisters and things like that, and grow.
Well, but I think so, and I agree. There's nothing in the idea of sacrifice, the idea of confrontation. Jesus spoke to the religious leaders of the day, and largely what he did was condemn them for the way that they handled themselves. He didn't come up and go, "Hey, come on, what are you doing here?" He said, "Man, you guys are." Well,
that's not my lane. Or I gotta. What I hear these preachers say today with these big there, I gotta protect my brand.
and Jesus's brand was going in and turning the temples over when they were making.
They called him a demon maniac. Everything.
Well, but I mean, and I think that we've lost that. I think that we've lost the sense of.
He was a revolutionary.
Being a pastor, I think, is much like being a public servant, right? In that if your idea of public service is making a lot of money, don't get into public service. You can't become a police officer, a firefighter.
That's right. Not if you're going to do it right.
And no one gets rich.
That's right. Not if you do it right.
In the service industry. No one gets rich doing that. And especially if you're a pastor. It doesn't mean that you can't have money. And I understand churches have to pay bills. And but my thing is, before
the mega church event, and there's always been large churches thing, but before the mega church phenomena, and you go back to the 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, and even 60s. Where like today, most churches was small, pastor struggle, a lot of times he's doing full time and things like that. And so what would happen is they would treat the pastor like they would treat the military too, right? So like if a pastor went to the cleaners, they would give him a discount because they knew that, hey, he's not, don't have a lot of money. If whatever he did, there was you're a preacher, they give you preference. But they was giving you that preference because of being the servant that you are in the community, and also knowing that you're probably struggling financially. And so they done switched the whole game around now, and it's all about you getting rich and famous and wearing rich clothes. I mean, I don't have nothing against it. If you earned it and you want to, whatever you want to wear, whatever you want to drive, wherever you want to live, that's your business. But I think that when you're in ministry, I give you an example. One of my mentors, Bishop Jeremiah Reed, he passed. But he was a millionaire, right? And he went and got a Bentley, and he had that Bentley for maybe 6 months and got rid of it. And I asked him, I said, "What happened?" He said, "It was stigmatizing my ministry." He was like, because when people see that, that's all they can see, and then folks start thinking that that's all you're about.
Well, the other day I was watching a video on Facebook. Miles McPherson was in a diamond store, talking about the guy he bought his wife's ring from 35 years ago, and he was going to buy his wife another diamond ring. And I started looking at the comments, and people are like, people think you spending the tithe money to get your wife. So people we have to stay away from those kinds of things. Like we have to it's important to be able to do that. Otherwise you become like everybody else. Yeah. But the thing for me, what I wanted to what really makes me sad about this whole thing is that I do think that pastors have left the responsibility to sacrifice for the people, that the heart is no longer like Jesus. The heart of the pastors is more now about, as Alonzo said, protecting, or like you said, protecting their brand, and your brand should be Jesus. And the Bible says he was a man of sorrows.
Standing on the word.
And here's the thing: it's not about not being successful. It's not about it's not about being able to have a house and have a place to stay.
We want the whole community.
But my point is, when you have people that are being mistreated, when you have people who are being preyed on by the legal system, when you have people in your families, in your congregation, especially if you're a church in the Black community, there's guaranteed that you have families in your congregation that have been preyed upon by the judicial system. Right. And if your job as an African-American minister, Action Alliance Council, Presbyterian, Baptist, whatever it is, the 25 letters a day, if your job is to bring radical reform and to seek justice, if that's your job as pastors, and you have somebody that you're honoring that is the antithesis to that. Like I'm talking about, Bonnie Dumanis couldn't be any more opposite from what you stand for. And as a community, we need to look at people like that, because here's the problem. And this is to any pastors in the community. When people look at the United African American Ministers Alliance, and when ministers do things in the name of God, it's a stain on other pastors in the community, whether you like it or not. People associate pastors with pastors. Anytime pastors say, "I'm a pastor," people automatically begin to start asking, what kind of pastor are you? Like, are you like all the rest of them? And this is a slap to the face for these congregations that are struggling with their members, that are trying to figure out how to make ends meet because they're trying to pay the legal fees. And you got mothers that are in here crying on Sundays or whatever because their kids have been locked up by this district attorney or whatever. And you got these Black pastors who are out here praising a woman who has created systems that have wide sweeping things that have been done that have harmed the Black community 100%. Right. And you, instead of calling them out and show,
they never did that.
And this is the thing about sacrifice, that this is the thing that the Apostle Paul said. The Apostle Paul said that, when he was in prison, He said, there's people out here that are preaching the gospel. Some are doing it for a good reason and some for a bad reason. He said, but ultimately at the end of the day, the gospel is being preached, and I'm grateful for that. And he said, what has happened is people have seen my imprisonment and it has emboldened them to be able to preach the word with more fervency. And what we actually need from pastors in the community is pastors who are willing to say, hey, this is not right, and take some heat for taking the positions or whatever, so that other pastors will get the boldness to be able to stand up and to join them in the particular struggle instead of hiding behind the sheets. A couple people have said some things, and I want to.
Yeah, and while you're looking at that, I just want to say, Carter G. Woodson, I forget what book it was. I read a couple of books, but the one I'm thinking of is that Miseducation of the Negro. And he was talking about how the pastor comes in and fleece the flock, to get what he wanted. So, and he said, but what the pastor should be doing is he should be living with the people. He should be sleeping with the people. He should be eating with the people. He should be suffering with the people. He should be crying with the people, and he should be willing to die with the people, And a lot of times there's a great gulf between the flock,
of course,
and the pastor,
of course,
right?
Of course.
And you got to change that. Jesus lived in the midst and among the people.
Well,
right?
what is the,
and they really couldn't tell the difference between who he was versus his disciples or so.
Well,
that's why Judas had to go up and kiss him, so they can know who he was.
Well, the one of the things that's happened is that we've exchanged what the church is, and we've rebranded the church, and we've used the institutional model of corporate America. So now you have executives and executive pastor, and you have executive vice pastor and all. And so you operate the church in a hierarchy. And before you know it, you end up having people that run Wells Fargo that, or these big banks that have offices on the 68th floor that got private elevators or whatever that the people never see. And that's what we've created. We've created pastors that are so out of touch with the people, and that, and we've created celebrity pastorism. And that's what a lot of these pastors want to be. They want to be celebrities.
And I had a brother, and this is something that I really have a pet peeve about, but I had a person I was talking with, and he was talking about, they went through the rock, and he was talking about a message that the preacher was saying, Miles was preaching. And this was a faithful brother, and at least at that time, and he was like, I felt like he was talking to me, even though he don't know me. And so that's the problem that we have today. The pastor don't know his people, and there's a great barrier. There's a huge barrier between the pastor and his flock, and people love it that way. They love it that way. That they love that mystical type thing, and he's there, he's preaching, then he's gone. Like, wow, he's gone.
Well,
wow.
But there
he is. He's preaching.
And I agree too. I think sometimes the churches have gotten really, really big. But one of the things that I think has happened, if you look at Acts chapter 6, there is like God has created a body. He's created a body of the church is made up of many members that all kind of come together to serve one purpose. And so if you look at even in the book of Acts, chapter 6, where the Greek speaking Jews came to the disciples and were like, hey man, we're not being taken care of here. Like, what's going on? And so they said, well, we're not going to leave preaching the word of God to serve tables. Not that it's not important, but our job is to preach the word. So we're going to assign men that are full of the Holy Spirit and wisdom, and they're going to go do that. And so there is a particular thing where there's a chance that a pastor doesn't know every single person.
I don't buy that. I know everybody have a point on, but my position has always been is that if I got to give an account for every single person that I pastor, then I want to know every single person that I pastor. Or I do believe that I can't do everything, right? And you got to have delegated authority and people to work with you. But I think there's a responsibility on my part with that help to make sure that I know the people that I'm pastoring, right? So
what would you do if you got 100 people in your church?
I was, the thing that I've consistently heard and talked to pastors, and what they've consistently told me is that, they were able to remember and know every member of the church until they got past 1,000 members, right? Now, once you get past that, you're going to struggle and have some issues and things like that. So my thing, this is just me. I don't want to ever get past 1,000 members. Because I want to be able to know every member of the church and have a relationship with them. I can't do everything. Of course, you have delegated authority, but there's a responsibility on my part. I'm not going to hell for nobody. And if God told Ezekiel, I have set you as a watchman on the wall to warn the people, how can I warn you if I don't know you? You know, how can I warn you if I don't have a relationship with you to be able to know what your needs are and your issues are? Of course, we have delegated people down there to minister and do things like that, and you get those reports of those things. But there are some issues that only a pastor can deal with, right? Even with Moses, when he set up that delegated authority, he said, you deal with the serious issues. So there's still things that the pastor has to deal with. He should never allow himself to be cut off from the people. I don't care. Well, if you got too many, then you need to break it down and start another church or ministry or something like that, or have some home fellowship and go to all the different homes.
I guess my thing is I don't know that it's possible.
It's possible.
But I think if you look at even Moses, when Jethro came to him and said, "What are you doing?" He's like, "Well, the people need me." He said, "Man, you're gonna kill yourself trying to serve all these people, right?" So he didn't say
delegated authority.
Yeah, he didn't say break them off and go start another fellowship. What he said is put somebody in the tens and somebody's in 50s and 100s. Like, you need to get people that can serve these folks, and then you just deal with the serious matters.
Exactly.
And so the whole idea is that I guess I'm not necessarily opposed to large fellowships per se. Again, my whole thing is motive. The motive for having this event. What's the motive? We can get into like whether or not we should have big churches. My whole thing is that this alliance should never have given Bonnie Dumanis an award, a hero award, for anything that she's done, because she has criminalized, especially for equal justice. She has criminalized the Black community, and it is an.
Does anybody know what she has done since she's been out of office?
What she has done while she was in office is so egregious it don't even matter. You know what I'm saying? Like, there are so many people that are incarcerated right now because of her office and because of the way that they have. Equal justice is not you getting arrested and going to court in the DA's office throwing 50 charges on you, stuff that you have what is the term that they use? You have like a judicial authority, if you will, to like not impose certain crimes. You have some kind of leeway to not put, but you put all these crimes on a person that gets arrested, and you know that the public defender's office does not have the staff nor the ability to be able to wade through all of these things. And that's the reason why not over 95% of everybody that's in prison in the United States is there without going to trial, because these DAs put all these charges on, and the only thing a public defender can do is say, we need to take a plea, because there's no way I can comb through all 20 of these charges that they put on you and come up with any kind of a case. I got 100 other people that I got to deal with. So they go from cell to cell, and they tell these little brothers, hey man, just accept the deal. Just accept the deal. There's nothing we can do. Just accept the deal. And it's
but I think that, look, I'm not, you can't defend, I shouldn't say you can't, but I don't want to get into defending public defenders, because there's a problem over there too, in the way they treat the people that they represent. I've seen it numerous times in how they do things. And not only that, but I remember several years ago when we were dealing with the county budget, and we were looking at what the DA got and what the defense, what they call it, the public defenders were getting as far as resources. And of course, it was way more for the DA. So we talked to them, the public defender said, hey, we want to help you all get more money so you can have more resources. They said, oh, we good. We don't need no more money. We're good. And so, when we talk about they lack whatever, that's the way they set it up, and that's the way they're doing it. So the whole system is crooked on both sides, the public defenders and us side. So if you don't have enough money to pay for your own lawyer to represent you, you're going to be messed up.
Well, I don't think it's an issue of defending. I don't know a whole heck of a lot about the public defender's office. All I know is that their workload is a direct result of the district attorney.
But they can bring more resources in there and hire more attorneys, but they don't want to do it. At least back when we were dealing with it and trying to get them more money.
But at this particular junction, the biggest problem in our system right now is the district attorney's office. Aside from whatever the DA's, aside from whatever the public defender's office is doing, the DA's office and what Bonnie Dumanis did not deserve that award today. Yeah. That's all I want. Like at the end of the day, that's what I want to end with.
For sure, man.
There's no way.
Community hero, what in the world are you talking about?
And it shows how absolutely disrespectful organizations like UAMIC and everybody that's associated with UAMIC. It shows how out of touch they are and how disrespectful that they are and how much they don't feel that they owe the community to be able to do things like that. There's no way that that's acceptable. And I feel like they should be called out. And it's just unfortunate. People that do things like that, it shows how far gone they are. And I've already had a conversation with Gerald Brown personally about these things before, and he knows. So I know he did it purposely. He knows why he did it. And they're trying to make a statement. And the statement that they're making is, we don't owe the community any kind of responsibility for as pastors, and they feel like they're the gatekeepers of the community, and they don't
like
feel
you said,
like
the motive money.
But they don't owe the community any explanation for why they're doing that. They don't owe that to anybody. They make those decisions.
You go after their funders, they'll switch up, they'll change their tune. Well,
I just want to see what's going to happen. I want to see what the people are willing to do. I want to let's read a couple of these comments and then we'll get going. He said the institution of the church is taking over. I agree. And Black people, not just pastors. Yeah, I agree. He said, I feel that as well, but pastors are not saviors, just people. That's true. They can move the church, but we need to get Black people to understand how this is an issue. Yes. And so I think the question becomes, how do we do that? Like, how do we get people to understand that? And hopefully, like, through endeavors like this, for people to say, hey, you guys, start questioning the things that these pastors are doing. Like, what do we do? But we need to there needs to be an organized.
But you're empowering them when you go there and you pay your tithes and offering. You're one body sitting in that seat, and they can say, we had 1,000 members today, and so on. You're empowering them and massaging their ego and making them feel that they can do what they want to do. When they're doing things that are inappropriate, and you know that, and you continue to go to that church, then you're part of the problem too, until you do something about it. At the very least, you should be praying for and talking to your pastor about it. And then if you can't get him to see the truth of the errors that he's in, you need to leave.
Alonzo says, if the people see that the head of their church is in line with the oppressor, they need to see it and leave, or see it and question their pastor. Folks in the church need to wake up. No, that's true. That's true, man. That's true. I agree 100%. And he says, there's some good people in the public defender's office. We have to bring the community to them. And I agree. I think if we're going to call fault to anybody, there's not this. And I'll end with this. I mean, because we could go on and we could talk about peripheral issues, but I don't know. There's not an institution in the world. I don't care who it is. Church. It could be the church that you think is the greatest church on the planet, the most doctrinally sound. Or whatever. There is not one institution in the entire world that is going to operate without without accountability. There's not anyone. There's not an organization in the world that can stand for any amount of time without having accountability. I don't care what it is. I don't care what the institution is. If you have any kind of anything that's been organized without accountability is bad. And accountability is simply sometimes just a question. Sometimes I say, Pastor, I see that you were at this award ceremony today with the public defender's office, and I want to know, why were you doing that? Like, and it's just about education. Why were you doing it? Hey, and did you know that my cousin or uncle or my brother was this happened? And so by you,
what Bonnie did,
you standing with these folks right here, do you know what that means to me? Like, and so I agree with Alonzo, and it's biblical for us to be able to do that. The scripture does say, though, that when you go to your elders, like, you're supposed to go to them. You're not supposed to accuse them without any kind of without any kind of real facts behind what you're doing. When you see something as egregious as this, you have a responsibility.
Yeah, it says rebuke not an elder, but entreat him as a father. And basically what it's talking about. And even when you talk about rebuke, a lot of times we think rebuke is just confronting and going on, but it's pursuing the matter until you can resolve it, and so, and with us being in clergy, we can rebuke and we in clergy, and there should be an accountability. I mean, if we don't speak out, who's going to speak out? Who's going to say it? If the clergy don't lead the way in doing this, a lot of times people have high respect for ministers, right? And they're like, okay, well, I don't agree with that, but that's not my place to say or do anything. And so we most definitely need more pastors and more clergy folks to quit selling us out and get on the right side of things and start standing up and speaking out, like we're doing, like you saying, you're hoping some of these other pastors, the other churches will do that. Some of these spiritual leaders and clergy will stand up and do something, because it's up to us to hold us accountable. When I do something, they have sit downs with me, and I go there and listen to them and agree. Okay, I won't do that anymore. I do it this way, and so on. So, what about when they do wrong? And that's what I get upset about.
Yeah.
And that's why I stopped going to some of these meetings that these certain people have in communities, because they don't hold those folks accountable. Well, and but then when it's one of us, we're held accountable.
Well, I guess for me, the question becomes, what do we do? Right? Like, where are the pastors that are actually willing to do stuff. Are there any pastors in San Diego that feel like this award was not right? Are there any pastors that feel like that? And if there are, like, let's meet together and like, let's have a meeting. Let's talk about that. If you know of any pastors who would be upset or disagree with what happened, like, let's get together with them, so that, because I would love to put the letter together in opposition to what they did with other pastors around the community that sign it, to say, we stand against these kinds of things. We have to stop, because UAMIC has a particular position in the community. They got the ear of the DA's office. They got the ears, and they're getting funding to serve, to do certain things in the community, based on what their mission and vision and purpose says. And we need to figure out, are there pastors in the community that are willing to sign a letter to say, hey, we're not going to do that. And we need to, because what's going to happen is they're going to continue to get those funds. They're going to continue to sit in the chief seat and act like they are the gatekeepers for our community, even though they're completely out of touch. And they listen to them, right? That's what I'm saying. They're gatekeepers. And I know it was part of this group and some other folks that did it. But I remember one time when Officer DeGuzman got killed, and I called out the gang unit on it. Not so much on that, but I was just saying that most of the problems in our communities come from the gang unit. And they aired that on news, and Zimmerman got upset. We got into it. Aaron Harvey was there, and our mom was there. My son Jay was there when we met with Zimmerman and had this going back and forth and things like that. And one of the things she told me is that, well, I said, hey, I'm just saying what I hear from the community. Well, I'm getting calls, and people are telling me you don't speak for the community. And so then who's calling her and telling her that and trying to undermine what just happened here? Instead of if they really did this, they should have called me rather than calling the police chief and telling the police chief that he don't speak for us. Well, that's why, for me, I want to know, and we need to know, who is it then? If not you, then who? And that, to me, what we need to do, or whatever, we need to figure out who it is, and we need to have a mechanism in place that says, if you do this particular thing, we're going to come to your door, and we just want to know what's going on. We have an alliance of folks that say this is not biblically sound, it's not okay, and we want you to stop it. So a couple of things, and then we'll end. Let me just say this one thing about when you talk about the letter and things like that, because on a national level, remember when Christianity Today wrote the letter about Trump, that he needs to be impeached. Those folks that were behind Trump, they got a letter together, and they signed it. They posted publicly that we're in support of Trump, blah, 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 and so on and so on. Then, of course, another group came. But these are the actions that has to happen. And the unfortunate thing is these clergy, I know we have some clergy coalition. We got to get some together that's bold enough to do it. But most of these clergy coalitions are in cahoots together with each other. And so, it probably have to be an individual thing. So I'm hoping that Pastor will hear what you're saying, and really, and clergy people, that's spiritual leaders would be willing to sign something. Go public with it. If any of you all know of folks that are willing to come together and form a coalition to be able to say, every pastor, these pastors don't speak for every pastor in the community. If there is somebody, whatever, exactly. I would like to know. And I would like to meet with them to say, because to sign the letters. And Alonzo says, let's go to the pastors. I'll roll with y'all. And let's go. And he says, Voice and Viewpoint needs to publish the letter. They need to publish the letter that the other pastors write. So I want to know, and maybe we need to take out an ad in the Voice and Viewpoint to say, hey, we want to know. But that's what he's saying. If we can get a group of folks to write a letter and have. I'm saying, soliciting solicit the pastors if there's any. I just want to know, do a majority of pastors in San Diego agree that it's okay to criminalize our community? But I just want to know that Voice and Viewpoint there. They're just a resource. They're a public resource to the community. This isn't calling the Voice and Viewpoint out. I'm saying that's a public resource that pastors use. And so, there's all those churches in the back. So if we take out an ad that says, hey, are there any pastors who agree that we don't want our communities to be criminalized? Are you willing to come together and form an alliance so that we can come against UAMIC and places like that when they get this funding? And it's all it is. It's all about money. And we can start saying, hey, you guys don't represent the whole community or whatever. You don't represent all pastors. And it's 5 of y'all. You guys don't have that kind of power, and you have to, you know what I mean? And just because they're giving y'all jobs and positions, you can't do that. Right. You can't do that. So I just wanted to say, I think it was ridiculous. I think it's ridiculous. Yeah. And I agree. And we need to do something about it. And Alonzo, we'll definitely get with you, man. We need to figure out how to organize. We need to get some brothers. I think it needs to be a two-part thing. I think there needs to be some of the brothers that have been criminalized by the system, and then we need to have pastors who are willing to come alongside, and together we need to create an alliance to be able to counter the narrative that everything's okay, that we're just cool with the DA's office. And just because they gave a pastor a position, that's the only reason why he's willing to roll over and not speak the truth. Yeah. And because it's tied to some money that he's making. And there's no way if you're connected to a community that you give Bonnie Dumanis an award. And here's why. And I'll just end with this. The reason why you don't give Bonnie Dumanis an award is because we are supposed to shun the very appearance of evil.
That's right.
You should never let your good be evil spoken of. And there's a way that by your actions you can cause people to stumble.
That's right.
And if your ways are causing people to stumble, then you should stop doing what you're doing. And if he's doing that, and by them standing with the DA's office, it sends the wrong message. And all these people that are in court, the DA will never move to dismiss charges and stuff like that if you can continue to soothe their conscience with these particular letters and giving these folks awards. So I say shame on you, Amick, for giving Bonnie Dumanis an award. She doesn't deserve any kind of hero award for the community. You should have distanced yourself from it. And what you should have done is you should have never given Bonnie Dumanis an award. That's right. The fact that Gerald Brown and them gave her that award is a travesty to our community. It's shameful, and it shows how out of touch that you are, and that you're willing to do whatever you can to get a little bit of a position or whatever. Right. And here's the bad part.
Perfectly.
Here's the worst part though, is when people know, and people know that if I knew I can persuade you with a little bit of money and I'm doing that, guess what else is happening? I'm talking to you however I want to talk to you. Right. I'm gonna say whatever I want to you, because anytime I know all I got to do is how you think people treat drug addicts. Right. You can get a drug addict to do anything you want if you give them a little bit of drugs.
And let me say this:
respect them. That's what they do.
The thought just came to my mind, not to keep going on, but I know I've talked with a preacher once that is part of this whole thing. And do you know that they are some of the people that are going to the DA's office and saying, arrest these guys and get these guys off the street? I remember when we dealt with the justice for SD 33, and we were some of Aaron and some of those, they dropped the charges and things like that. And then one of these preachers said to me, he said, we're going to let them off the hook this time. But I said, no, there ain't going to be no next time. We fighting for justice every single time. And if they don't do it right, we're going to call on them on the next time. We're not going to give the DA's office a pass to get out there and start criminalizing and arresting people unjustly when they haven't done anything. Of course, if you committed a crime or whatever, we end up, and even that we want it to be just, but when you talking about just over criminalizing, over policing the community and going after our people and leaving all these other folks alone, you got a lot of white gangs out there. You got a lot of white folks doing drugs. You got a lot of white folks doing a lot of different things, and all they focus on is our community.
My thing is, I don't know anybody that's saying, "No, just let people go around the community and shoot people." And don't say
right. We speak out against that all the time.
We don't care if people run around here shooting people and doing so. We don't care. There's nobody that says that. All I'm saying is that when things happen, treat all communities fair with justice and equity.
That's all God.
Don't over criminalize.
No favoritism.
Don't use an uneven scale.
That's right.
When you execute justice. That's all I'm saying. And as a system that's doing that, and you have pastors that are backing that, absolutely, and pastors that back that, it goes to show what you preach.
Yeah, they have respect the person, and that's a sin.
Absolutely. So I mean, I don't know. I just wanted to get on and just kind of say, man, I think it's wrong for them to do it. It's terrible. Yeah. Shame on them for doing that. Yeah. We don't support it 100%. We don't. Not at all. And if there's any pastors out there, and anybody who knows any pastors that think it was inappropriate to give an award to Bonnie Dumanis for the way that she's criminalized the Black community, if you feel like she doesn't deserve a hero award for her time in office, if you're a pastor out there and you feel that way, somehow get in touch with Bishop Bowser or myself, and let us know. You can leave a comment in this thing here. You can, it really ain't hard to find. My email address is pastorj619@gmail.com. Shoot me an email, and I would love to just get together with y'all so that we can counter the statement that we think that this is wrong. It's time for us to stand up and stop letting these folks do whatever they want, run roughshod through the community and stand on the fact that they're pastors, and we give them a pass. pastors need to be held accountable just like everybody else.
That's right.
And we just want to do that. So thanks for spending this little bit of time with us. We appreciate y'all as always. We love you. If nobody told you they love you today, we love you.
We love you.
And we just do this because we believe it's what God would want us to do.
And we do it because we love you.
100%.
Love our community.
100%. So have a great day and happy Martin Luther King Day.